We all know that Sri Rama was having 14 years of exile. The question is, why is it only 14 years? Or why was it 14 years? So the answer is going to be given by our speaker today, Ms. Sonal Sachdeva. I now request her to please take the dais and let us enjoy that.
Namaskaram, everyone. Yes, it's a big topic. I didn't factor in such a big topic, but it did become. Let's begin with a prayer. Om Gananam Tva Ganapatigum Havamai Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anav Shunvannu Tipisi Dasadhanam Prano Devi Saraswati Vajibhirvajinivati Dhinama Vitrayavatu Ganeshaya Nama Saraswatyai Nama Shri Gurubhyo Nama Hari Om. So, this talk has been inspired. Can everybody hear? At the back, okay. This talk has been inspired by when I began my research in Ramayana. Don't forget, I've grown up in Bharatvarsh. So we always listen to stories as children. There's Amar Chitra Katha, so on and so forth. But what got me inspired by this talk is meeting with Jagat Guru Sri Ram Bhadracharya. And that was very epic on many, many levels. Are you guys familiar with him at all? No? Nobody? No one is aware of him? Yeah? Yeah. So a handful of few. Okay, so just to give quickly, Ram Bhadracharya was, still is, he's based in Chitrakut at the Tulsi Peeth. And he essentially was instrumental in when all over the country, the issue of Ayodhya temple, it was a big struggle. It was lying in the High Court and it was having a huge problem because they were not willing, the Islamic or Muslim contingency were really furious and they did not want to destroy the whole mosque issue. I won't go into all that. But essentially, because of him, he changed the tides completely. He brought in shlokas because and then proved that that's where Sri Ram was born, on that particular latitude and longitude in Ayodhya. And that changed the course of history. And he is, of course, involved in other fights like bringing back Kashmir and also the Gyanvapi issue, which is like, every Hindu's birthright to drink from the waters of Ganga. So anyway, on one of his kathas, I heard about nowhere in the Ramcharitmanas by Tulsidas as well as Ramayana, they mention about why 14 years. As Jyotishis, we know that it's the Mula Dasha, so on and so forth. We've enough discussions have gone on. But why particularly 14? Why could it not be 12? The Dasha notwithstanding. After all, he's a Surya avatar and 12 Rashis make perfect sense and so on and so forth. So, and he's also a Purna avatar, and which most all Purna avatars have a kalas of Shodasha kalas. So 16 kalas would have been most logical, but it wasn't to be. It had to be 14. And it got me thinking, and so I went down the path, of course, with a lot of help from Rambhadrachari in terms of the whole concept of it. And so here we won't, most likely will not have time to go through all of them, but I will cover very key points. And if you notice, it's like 14 bhakts to meet. Bhakts is devotees here to meet in his journey. So, and the 14 gunas and adrishya kalas, and the 14,000 river tributaries, and so on and so forth. So let's jump right in. So this is one of the little chopais from the Ramcharitmanas. Tapasavesha Visesha Udasi. I can't sing too well, but Choda Baras Rama Banavasi. So essentially, it means that let Rama dwell in the woods for 14 years in the garb of a hermit and wholly detached from the world. And the king, of course, which is Dashratha, is totally aggrieved, you know. He is absolutely heartbroken on listening to the demand of Kaikeyi. And so this, and it is compared to the to hear these gentle words, even as a chakravaka bird is filled with agony at the mere touch of a moonbeam. So this shows the anguish and the depression and the shock of Dashratha on listening to these words, demands of 14 years. Now, Kaikeyi, interestingly, when she told Sri Ram, you know, it's at the bottom, it basically says, Sapta Varshani. So I'm not going to go too much into the details of it, but it's, what is interesting is there was a chopai, I think somebody did, and I then removed it, but different people were told different sort of number of years, all adding up to, of course, 14. Initially she said 9 and 5 to Dashratha, but to Sri Ram she mentions 7 and 7, which is really interesting from the Jyotish point of view and even from the Vedic numerology, because when we talk about number 7, 7 plus 7, and it's the 7th house, so immediately we get an inkling, an idea about, oh my God, it is the reigning theme is going to be of the 7th house. Feel free to stop me at any time if there are any questions. So the story of exile of 14 years is, of course, central to the whole epic. There's no doubt about that. And so what is this magical number 14? Again, the reasons are not obvious, like I mentioned. There's not much of stuff going on, but it is, as a spiritual seeker, you know, this story is instrumental, and his time, as Guruji mentioned a few days ago, the Vanvas is absolutely at the core and the heart of the whole Ramayana experience. And it is also a lesson and a healing tool for all of us. And Ramayana is possibly one of the great Adi Kavyas, that is one of the original very first poem, you know, which reflects all the Vedic knowledge in it. So literally there is nothing in the Ramayana, or at least even in the Ramcharitmanas, that does not give you a solution to your problem, as we will see slowly and slowly further on. Now you have to understand, you know, the Trimurti and so on and so forth. So I won't delve on some things. I will just kind of like speed up a little bit. So the close relationship between Brahma, Saraswati and Sri Ram. So Saraswati Devi, or you know, the goddess Saraswati, was literally like a little puppet. You know, her soft spot is Sri Ram. So, and literally there's a story that goes that Sage Pulatsya, son of Brahma, once reached the banks of the river Saraswati. So it is all very symbolic. And literally, she was in deep meditation, so she must have ignored him. And you know how it is, it's not just Rishi Durvasa who is known for his temper and so on and so forth. There are other rishis also who get annoyed, and so he was obviously annoyed. And so, and he cursed that none of her desires will be fulfilled, and so in response to that curse, she reached out angrily and cursed him and said, "You will be the father of 3 Maha-asuras, later who came to be Ravana, Kumbhakarna and Vibhishan." So there you go. So even it's ironic that we call them asuras, the great demons or whatever. But the fact is that they were also Brahmins, as we shall see in a bit. So again, now coming back to the 14 Manvantaras, this is a very huge Vedic cosmological mapping and term, huge. So I will not be delving too much into this at all, because there's a lot of calculation of yugas and so on and so forth. But I am absolutely fascinated by the Vedic cosmology in terms of the calculations and Surya Siddhanta, and a lot of the other texts have a different take on the calculations and so on and so forth. So Alpakala, so the smallest division of time, where what it takes for 2 leaves and a strong person to pull weave the needle into and connect the 2 leaves literally is Alpakala. And so it's like one of the smallest unit of time, and everything then starts building up. Like I said, I won't go too much into that, but you can take a picture. It is absolutely fascinating. But Lord Brahma, of course, the concept of Chatur Yugas and are absolutely central to this whole theme, So 71 Chatur Yugas make literally in each Manvantaras. Now, and after all of that, then every Kalpa, Lord Brahma destroys himself and so on and so forth. So like I said, I don't want to do the focus here is not of the calculations and so on, but this just gives you an idea. And we are a lot of people have spoken already about the Krita, Treta, Dwapara and Kali Yuga. So here you go. So there are these divine years and so on and so forth. But what is interesting is he appeared in the Treta Yuga, and including when we talk about the 14 Manvantaras, one of the Manvantaras that is a lot of the scholars agree upon is this Vaivashvata Manu, which is our current Manvantara, and he appeared in one of the 24th, some scholars say 23rd Yuga of this Manvantara. So it's sort of, like I said, it is a complex topic. I won't delve into it, but it is very interesting that there are 14 Manvantaras, and each of these, they are the mind-born sons of Lord Brahma. And of course, as a creator, there is a very deep connection. And like for the current Vaivashvata Manu, he is the son of Surya Dev. So again, there's loads of other ones, as you can see, but a great topic for further research. So here, this is from the Rig Veda, and even here there is a mention that in his one day, like me, 14 Indras, 14 Manus and all his sons that are born pass away. So ultimately, after every Kalpa, this is like the 51st year of Brahma. So after every Kalpa, the Brahma destroys himself and then it's recreated. And this is like we are talking of staggering number of trillions of years and so on and so forth. And so what is interesting is that there's a mention of the 14 Indras. So we will come later to the fact that we are talking about the Indras and the Manus. And again, 1,000 Chatur Yugas, and each Chatur Yuga is compromises of those 4 yugas. They are like the chokha of Jagannath, the four. We can even map it to the four purusharthas, Just this little diversion. I keep going down the rabbit holes and always says diversion. Okay. So here again we see that rupam prati rupa babhuva tadasya rupam prati chakshanaya. So here again we talk about, the Rigveda talks about Sri Ram, who is actually, it doesn't directly address him as Sri Ram. It talks about Indra. There is a lot of mention of Indra, and later at the end we will see that how literally when Rigveda is talking of Indra, he is, or the Vedic texts are referring to as Sri Ram. Okay. This is another little thing from Ramcharitmanas, the opening chopai, Varnanam Artha Sanghanam. So that's the opening chopai, or the opening verses for the Ramcharitmanas. And what is interesting is it begins with a reverence to Vani. Obviously we are talking of, when we talk of Vani, the goddess of speech, we are referring to Saraswati here, and Vinayaka, Lord Ganesh. That's why I started my prayer with Ganesh and Saraswati. So the originators of sounds represent the alphabet, multiples of objects denoted by these sounds, and the begetters of all conscious or auspiciousness. And so the ending one, if you look, the very last one, we all have received a copy of the Ramcharitmanas, which is absolutely thrilling, thanks to the host, Pratik. And so here, no mana vaha. So what does it mean that we are talking of Varna and Manavaha? So essentially what it is saying is that no matter where in the world, Ramayana does not just belong to Bharatvarsh. It is absolutely global. The name Rama, anybody can chant, no matter which religion, what creed or caste you're from, it is irrelevant. And that is not, I didn't make it up, it's there right in front of you in the books that you have, the Ramcharitmanas, which is amazing because the literally the Varna means all over various kinds, various kinds of speeches. That means people who speak various kinds of languages all over the planet are and will be able to derive huge healing capacity just with the name of Sri Ram. Okay. So here, I don't know if anyone has been to Southeast Asia and so on and so forth, but there, if you go to Myanmar, I won't spend too much time in there, but they have the national, epic for, in Thailand is Ramakien. And again, Indonesia, I lived in Jakarta. So again, there is, if you go to Bali, there is tons and tons of Ramayana you can find. And in fact, in the same holds true in Cambodia and so on and so forth. And if you notice that Ayodhya is also one of the capitals of Thailand. So again, that has a huge relevance as well, because Ayodhya literally translates to Ayodhya. So this is a little verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Paritranaya sadhanam vinashaya cha drushta krutam dharma sansthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So here the Bhagavad Gita mentions about that every single yuga, to establish the dharma, the avatars will be born again and again in order to keep coming back and fight the evil and protect the good and protect the righteousness, and that is a given. and to help engage the minds of the bhakt and purify their minds. So this is very, very fundamental purpose of course, Sri Ram. So here, I mentioned about the Shodasha Kalas. Every avatar has a Shodasha Kalas. And it's true because Krishna, Lord Krishna also had his Swarupa. Shodasa means all the 16 kalas are absolutely visible. His gada, his everything, his various faces, his various rupas of forms will be visible. And we know for people who have studied the Bhagavad Gita, at the time when he shows Lord Arjuna his Swarupa, and for all the yugas and yugas, thousands of years, all his swarupas, he shows him, and Arjuna is in a state of shock. But with Sri Ram, it is different. Even though there is 16 kalas, but yet 2 of them are adrishya. Adrishya means 2 of them are not seen at all. Okay, so that takes it to 14, which is again, we come back to the significance, the spiritual significance of Chauda Varas. So here again, the Sri Ram means Rati, the word. There's many views that you can take. There are many Shastras, Pramana, who talk about the various ways you can contemplate or derive the meaning of Rama. So here Rati and Mahasthita. Mahasthita means Mahi is, large, meaning of earth, and Sthita is to be entrenched, to be stated, to be established, to actually be there. So again, that means a lot because he is literally the form that is stated. He is there for us and for every single inhabitant on this planet. So here, like I said, Mahasaraswati is one of the biggest devotees, and she is literally a little puppet for Sri Ram. Now, because one can say, of course, yes, there were curses, no doubt, there is a Narada curse too. Now, what is interesting is, when you look at the Tithi, I'm going to briefly bring in a little bit about the Tithi. When you bring in the Tithi, the Chaturdashi Tithi, it has the dosha of Shukra, right? And often we say when the Atithi has a dosha or particular problem or with Shukra, if you look at the Krishna Paksh Chaturdashi, it is like the hellish one. It is one of the most terrible Tithis. And if you see that there is a curse of Narada and so on and so forth, but this is a curse of Venus. So again, we are back to this theme of Venus. So you see how this theme of Venus is emerging, and the 7th house along with it. And here Mahasaraswati is the greatest devotee, like I said, of Sri Ram, and she literally asked Lord Brahma that why don't you put it in the head of Kaikai to orchestrate these 14 years so that she can actually ask for a boon, and says to send him off. Now again, the question remains, why 14? Now there is a particular boon that, as we will see in a minute, about Ravana. He could not be killed by somebody who has some of the siddhis, that he needs to not be able to sleep, no women, and no bhojan, that is no food. So what does that tell us? That you have to give up all of these in order to be able to defeat Ravana. He was one of the most powerful, and of course, as Sarbaniji said before, that he created havoc in all the worlds. So here again, the Nidra, Nari, so it was only Lakshman who could do this particular sacrifice. Now, when we talk about in Ramcharitmanas, and there are shlokas which talk about the Durgunas of Ravan, One is the Kami Haran, lakhs of women. That is, he basically molested loads, thousands and thousands of women. And he also had issues with anger. So there are literally 14 or 14 Chaturdasha Durgunas of Ravan that had to be defeated, for Sri Ram. So the task was humongous. Opposer of the Vedas and the saints, critical, highly critical, Nindai, Ghor Papi, always feeding one's body. So he was constantly sort of lazy and feeding one's body, crippled and literally kind of disabled as well. And Rogi, Rakshasa, much older than before one's age, and so on and so forth. So you see, these are all the Durgunas that are stated there. Then we have also, what is it? Sri Ram had no resources. He had the Kalas, yes, but he had actually no money, no resources. He didn't have a great kingdom. The army, okay, it got developed through the Vanar Sena and so on and so forth, but it was only a Vanar Sena. And of course, while in contrasting with that, Ravan had like huge army. He had like a golden, his palace was like flowing in gold and beauty and, absolutely stunning. And so what did he need to overcome this kind of phenomenal resources that Ravana had? He had to literally dig deep into his Mahavidyas, and we all know that the Chatur Darshan is a huge concept in our Vedic knowledge. It talks about the 4 different, when we add up, like there is the 4 Vedas, there is the 4 Upavedas, then we have the 6 Vedangas, and that itself gives you the, and the Vedangas, there are 6 in number. So literally we come to the figure of 14. So the Chatur Darshan, he had to utilize within himself to be able to overcome a lot of the ills. Now, little bit about the nakshatras is one of my favorite topics, the nakshatras. So he is, we know that he is, the nakshatra was Punarvasu, right? And if you look at it, this is nothing but simple Tarabal chakra, very simple. If you notice that Venus could have been in Purvabhadra or Revati. If it is in Revati, then we get the Vipatatara. In all likelihood, if it was in Revati, then it would have been in a Gandanta position, and Vargottama. We are all familiar with that, right? Yeah? Okay. So, but it could also be in Purvabhadra, and there are many, because from Punarvasu, Purvabhadra is in the Adhana Nakshatra. Now, if you have any planets in Adhana Nakshatra, then you will always have literally that particular planet will be the reason why you are born on this planet. It will give you the entire focus. So here it is pretty amazing that, through some analysis and so on and so forth, we can at least work out some of the nakshatra. There's a lot of, like he would have most like, of course he had Surya in Ashwini and so on and so forth. And Mangal in most likelihood Dhanishta, which is a Mitra. So you wanted Mangal, and he is also the Suryapati. So you want the Suryapati to be on your side, even though it is in MKS, but you want the Suryapati to be able to assist you in your Dhi Shakti, in your intelligence, which is nothing but his Lagna. Okay, now talking of Ravan, so what made Ravan so immensely powerful in these 3 worlds that even the Devata were shaking and they had to deploy Hari himself, Narayan himself to come down on earth? What was it? Of course, he was a Asuric Brahman, extensive resources, but he was one of the greatest devotees of Lord Shiva. He sang the Maheshwara Sutras, which is, anyone familiar with the Maheshwara Sutras or what it means? Anyone? Sorry? Yeah. Okay, they are over here, as you can see on the left. So basically, they are the building blocks of Ashtadhyayi. And Ashtadhyayi is what the language Sanskrit and all the sounds are inspired and derived from. So these are the fundamental building blocks, the Maheshwar Sutras. And as you can see, each of these sounds have huge capacity for healing. So it was Ravana who chanted for Lord Shiva when he was on a Tandav. He also rang the Damru, played the Damru, the music for Lord Shiva 14 times. And that is all documented. It's there in the shlokas. So this is pretty amazing, right? So, okay. So now he also had another huge task, because some of these, asuras had the Mahasura, like Meghanad was like a huge asura. And he basically also had an army of 14,000, and there were fundamentally 14 asuras that he had to defeat, out of which Meghanad was one of them. So you can see here now, I'm going to divert a little bit about the various kinds of pain, because we all know that for Sri Ram, this existence, this whole challenge of 14 years was an absolute pain, right? Now, even as a Devata, as a, Narayana himself, one could say that, okay, he is a Narayan, he feels no pain. But bear in mind, he came in a human body as a Nara avatar. He had only 2 hands, unlike Krishna, where he could everything was at his resource. Krishna was an infant, and he would, he defeated Kali and he played around the snakes as soon as he was born. So this is another level. So in contrast to that, Sri Ram was not playing around with snakes and defeating and killing of Kamsa and so on and so forth. So literally, he felt the pain of everyone. He felt it on a very deep level. And that is the beauty of Sri Ram, that he actually felt all kinds of pains. Now, from the Vedanta standpoint, we can say there is various kinds of pains. Adhyatmika, there is Adhibhautika and Adhidaivika. Now, obviously, if you talk about Adhidaivika, if we do a Jyotish stance on it, it literally means that, okay, you have, pain regarding Daivika, meaning Daivya or Divya. So it means something to do with light and knowledge and something to do with the Devas. So that means, and each of these kinds of pain relate to the chakras within our body. And how many chakras are there in our body? 7 core? Yes? Yeah. Okay, so each of these, so like Adhyatmika, when we talk of Adhyatmika, we are talking about, the pain that is arising out of mind-body, a dysfunctionality between the mind and body. It's talking about, the chakras which will get affected if there is a discrepancies between our mind, disconnect between our mind and body. And that is to do with, it is reflected in the power centers within our chakras, which is Anahata, Vishuddhi and Agnya chakra. So again, that is the Adhyatmika. Then we have the Bhautika, which is to do with, eternal, in terms of the beasts or natural disasters and so on and so forth. If there are earthquakes and so on and so forth, and people get crippled because of that, and that is can be categorized as bhautika. And then we have the daivika, as I mentioned, through gods and curses. I mean, all you need is a curse from a rishi. You need a cursed Jupiter with Rahu, and that would fall in the category of Adhidaivika. Everybody with me? Yes? Yeah? So, okay. And so all of these, and this is very much stated in the Mukti or Kailavya Upanishad, and it talks about, and this is core for the Samkhya philosophy, and here it is like everlasting release from the threefold sorrows and so on and so forth. But again, we shall see what happens, all these kind of pains, we can easily map it to these 14 core asuras or the Mahasuras which Sri Ram had to defeat. Virat, Khara, and Khara, Dushan and Trishira, he defeated literally in the Dandaka Vana. Now, each of these asuras have a different flavor. They have a different, that expression, pain in the dash, dash, dash. Everybody familiar with that expression? Yes? But each of these asuras, they were not made equal. Some of them are extremely unequal, especially the 12, 13 and 14, because they were defeated they belong in the Lanka Khan. And Kumbhakaran, Meghna, these were like huge, they were very immensely powerful. Especially Kumbhakaran, he would sleep for a few months, he would eat endlessly. And Meghna also, he had these magical shaktis where he would just disappear and so on and so forth. So you see, these are like serious giants here. So he had to kill the 14 asuras. So out of which, if you see the list, Marich is also over there. But the interesting thing about Marich and Vibhishan, of course, he's not there, but he's there in the next one. So essentially, there were, even though Vibhishan was a brother of Ravan, but later he joined in on the Dharma side, on Sri Ram's side. So here we talk about how he had to kill all the demons, and Marich, of course, was forced by Ravana to become a golden deer which he coveted. Now we could also say the karma of what was the dharma and the karma of Sri Sita, that she had to go and look for that beautiful thing. Women do that, right? They pester their husbands, they want something. And okay, that's fine too. The husband, everybody wants a husband like Sri Ram. But then he goes off and gets everything for her. But yet she could not even follow the instructions of Lakshman. The Lakshman Rekha, the fire, line of fire. So even, it's interesting that every step of the way, Ramayana tells you that, hey, you're violating the dharma. Every time you violate some dharma or the other, any situation, even as human beings, if we are in a particular situation, we have to contemplate and figure out what the dharma of the situation is. Are we violating it? And it is nothing big like great moral dilemmas. It can be simple stuff where we have to understand what is our dharma of what is it being called for. So here, Marich did not want to go off and be shot with, die in the hands of Ravan. But between the choice between Ravan and Sri Ram, I think the it was for him, the choice was absolutely clear. And also Marich knew about Sri Ram much when he was much younger, and he had heard about his Aishwarya, about how powerful and how amazing and how what a great emperor he was. So he had got a whiff of all of that, and he did mention it to Ravan, but of course it fell on deaf ears. So, and here we talk of Bharata fell on Ram's feet. Now, this is really interesting because once they were in the, this is again a very interesting lesson in Dharma, because once he went off to, to Vanvas, Bharat literally, after his father passed away, he came to the woods, they did the little ceremonies which was one should perform after one's passing away. And bear in mind that when we talk about all our doshas, Pitri dosha, we talk of the Shraddha Yoga, because let's face it, those are the Adi Bhautika or Adi Daivika, all those pains are nothing but lying hidden in those Shraddha Yogas that we have. Sun-Saturn connection is definitely a Shraddha Yoga, right? And let's face it, it will bring all the energy into the chart, because it's one of the core yogas, as is Shraddha Yoga, Sun-Saturn, And so here, we get a great example that in spite of having all of those yogas and the Shraddha Yoga, his attitude towards Bharat, who said this, please come back to the kingdom, I want you back, and we'll start over, and so on and so forth. And only a fool, and he called his father a fool and untruthful, and so on and so forth. But Rama replied that saying, Mother, I have neither any disrespect nor ill will for you. I will return to Ayodhya only after 14 years. And neither Bharat or me have any interest in kingdom. And we both are bound by our father's promise, and we will obey it. So you see, that's another lesson for all of us, that, like I said, no matter what Shraddha Yoga, Sun Saturn or Saturn Rahu or Saturn Moon, but yet we have to at some level follow the Dharma. Okay, so just little bits and pieces about the 14 one of these 14 asuras that he had to kill, like Khara, with his blood oozing out and so on and so forth. And then there is the Disana and Trisaras, and those 14,000 demons as well. So, finally Surpnakha goes and because she saw Sri Ram and fell in love, and she's a sister of Ravana, and she basically wanted to marry him, and he directed her to Lakshman and then instructed, so she said, okay, if I can't have him, let me try his brother, who's equally good looking. At least from Guruji's slides yesterday, but anyway. Yeah, the AI generated, yeah. She's laughing, yeah. But yeah, so he directed her to Lakshman, and of course instructing Lakshman that please chop her nose off, So she goes crying back to Ravan and so on and so forth. So, so what do we have? Okay, so here we have various kinds of dharmas. Now I won't go into the minutiae of all the dharma and so on and so forth, but we do know that the four brothers were like literally the Nandi. They were the Chauka, the Jagannath Chauka, which is nothing but the four Purusharthas, you could say, and it illuminates Lord Shiva's Nandi. So and there is a very close relationship between Lord Shiva and Sri Ram, and we've, as Jyotishis and with the paramparic knowledge that we have been told that that Sri Ram is always in meditation of Shiva, and Shiva is in meditation of Hari or Sri Ram. So again we we see that, that we both are interlinked. In fact, so much so that when Sri Ram was born, he dressed up as an astrologer, and went to disguise himself, Lord Shiva, as an astrologer, as a Jyotishi, and only to have a glimpse of baby Sri Ram. Okay. Now, what was the other thing that he had to do? He had to meet 14 core devotees who are very priya, prana priya. When we say prana priya, that is, they were as close to him as his own pranas. If you see, there was Kevat, there was Jatayu. Kevat was the boatman. Of course, there was Rishi Bharadwaj, Valmiki, Atri, and then there was Sardanang, Sutisha, Agastya, Sabriji, Narad Muni, Hanumanji, Sugriv. So we are all familiar with all of these. So this is another very important devotional aspect, that he had to meet these devotees. We all are familiar with the great story of Shabri, where she had no money and she was living on her own, old woman, and she literally was so happy to see Sri Ram that whatever she would taste the little berry before she gave it to him, in order to be able to ensure that it was sweet and not sour. So, things like that. Okay. Now, we come to a very important point, Sri Ram's Sharira. Okay. So here, during the conversation of Hanuman in the Vatika, right, when he reaches the Vatika in Lanka, now he has to convince Sita that, okay, I have come as a Duta or a messenger of Lord Rama, so please believe me. Now, interestingly enough, in the Ramcharitmanas, it is mentioned that she spoke Maithili and she spoke Avadi, the language, and she spoke Sanskrit. And Hanuman, of course, having his Shaktis, he would be a master of any language. While in Lanka is like being a foreign land, so Ravana could speak only Sanskrit. So if you think about it, the mode of communication between Sita and Ravan would have been Sanskrit. But when you think about it, so Hanuman thought for a moment and said, there is only one way she will believe me, if I speak in Maithili. And that's how he kind of convinced. And the other way he convinced her is through some of the sargas from Sundarakand. We get an impression where one of the says about Chatur Dasha, he has 14 equally developed parts, perfectly developed. Eyes, eyebrows, nostrils, ears, lips, nipples, arms, elbows, wrists, loins, hips, knees, testicles, and feet. And so there's a long list of 28 qualities about his perfect, beautiful, the whole body, absolutely perfect. Some of them we have been covering over a week now, long arms and beautiful legs, so on and so forth. I won't go into all that. So here's some little Jyotish bits and pieces, but this 28 qualities is very significant, because when we talk about the 14 and the 28, suddenly, if you double up 14, we get the figure of 28. So here, these are also the norms of beauty. And as a Jyotishi, any client who comes in, when we look into their eyes, when we look at their countenance, how do they look? How do you feel? All that is huge. This is called Samudrita Shastra. And how are you? How can you make a judgment? It's, don't judge a book by its cover. We know that. But when it comes to figuring out, is this so-and-so, the question that the person is asking, is he suitable for it? Somebody is asking for moksha or some such thing. Is he suitable for it? Is somebody suitable to go in a completely spiritual direction? It will be reflected in his countenance, And like Ramakrishna Paramahansa used to say, it comes to me, reading of people comes to me very easily. So somewhere along the line, he was employing Samudra Shastra, Samudrika. So bony people, hollow-eyed people, cross-eyed people with physical traits like those cannot easily acquire faith. That means they find it very difficult to just give up their faith or trust and lay their trust in somebody else. Very difficult. So there are many sutras. I am not going to go into that, but I thought this was very relevant. And there is more, how each one of it is. You can have the slides and, move on. But it is about opening up into the research and delving deep in. Because it gives you a lot of information about how one's gate is. And remember, in the 28 qualities, Hanuman describes to Sita how he walks. Sri Ram has got the grace of 4 gates, like how he walks. It's lion, it's elephant, it's horse. So, this is amazing. So here, Ramakrishna would make an immediate judgment on how the person is walking. So here again, he talks about, if a man becomes very mean, if he has lips that are thick, okay, like a dome. So again, he gives an instance, and this is all documented. Brahmin was here a few months acting as a priest and so on and so forth. He couldn't eat the food he touched, and one day he said he's a dome. Because remember, Ram Krishna Paramahansa would know if the person who's cooking has done his Gayatri or not, literally, because that would be transferred in the food. Whatever energetically you make, cooking, it is completely transformed or transferred into your food you eat. So one day he explained, of course it's a dome, and so he said he makes wicker baskets, and then he said the person confessed later and so on and so forth. Anyway, I don't want to go into like squint-eyed people out here in this world, all blessed. Like I said, I think we have to employ our judgment and reserve. Okay, now the keeping all the lokas or bhuvans, okay? When the Rama decided to leave for the forest, Sita wanted to accompany him. Of course, there is shloka. She kept pestering him, I am going to come. It was a foregone conclusion. Absolutely by one. In her mind, there was no way she was going to be separated from Sri Ram. When I am with the lion, so he asks her, but she replies that when I am with the lion among men, what can any animal do? So he kept arguing, can't you? So she finally says, can't you, who's the protector of the 14 worlds, protect alone Sita? But of course he couldn't, at least initially, but it's also about breaking of the dharma, like I mentioned. Lakshman told her explicitly not to cross the line. Now this is again a lesson for all of us. Like, sometimes it is not easy to follow the path of dharma. And in small situations too. So again, she crossed the line, but yet she had this faith in him that he was a protector of all the 14 worlds. So literally, his Aishwarya or Kirti is all the 14 worlds. So here we have all the bhuvans. Now Mundaka Upanishad, Atharvaveda, there is Devi Mahatmya. Everyone gives you all the lokas, and we have studied extensively the lokas. We all are familiar with the lokas, yes? There are 7 lokas and there are 7 talas. And each of these talas have those beautiful nagas, and Vasuki is in the tala, and so on and so forth. There is no sunlight that reaches in the talas, but the money, that is the snakes, how do they see? How do these beautiful full of wisdom nagas and absolutely, ferocious nagas, how do they see in these talas? Because they have the Vaidurya, the gemstone, which literally absolutely illuminates the entire talas. Okay. And again, we have, this is Guruji's slide, so I pitched it. So, it says there are 14 bhuvans are protected by Lord Brahma. And so again, each of these 14 talas and each of the the talas and the lokas are literally mapping into our body. Another little diversion when we talk about Chaturdasha Lokapals. Now again we see the references for the 14 fundamental world protectors. Now please note that these are different. The Lokpala Devtas are different from the Dikpala Devtas, okay? The Dikpal are directional, the Lokpal go across all the 14 worlds, so slightly different. And this is the list here. I won't go into that, but like I said, further research. Now, I want to do one thing about the Tithi, okay? One of the key things about the Tithi is Sri Ram was born in Navami. Which is the Dagda Rashi for Sri Ram? Leo and Scorpio, okay? Now when we talk of Leo and Scorpio, usually we would look at his Leo, we would look at his Scorpio, and so on and so forth in his Jataka. But this is a slight deviation, and we look at the Naisargika, okay? The Naisargika, Sri Ram's, as a Kal Purusha himself, the Naisargika 5th house is the sign of Leo, and the Naisargika 8th house is the sign of Scorpio. So what is the 5th house? What is the 5th house? Karakas? Who are the Karakas? What signifies the 5th house? Children, creativity, love, yeah? But children is a big one, right? So when we talk of the Dagda Rashis, you think he was living happily ever after with his children, love and kush? No. Similarly, when we talk of Scorpio, is it 4th from the 5th? Is Scorpio in the Naisargika 4th house from the 5th house? So can we say then that the home of children would be disturbed, it has got burned? And where were they born? Anyone? We learned that yesterday and even today. The children were born in the ashram, right? Valmiki's ashram, remember? So again, we get a big clue. So similarly, we can do for Lakshman as well. So Lakshman was born in Ekadashi, right? What is the 2 Dagda Rashis for Ekadashi? Anyone? Sagittarius? Yeah? And Pisces? Yes? And so what is the Naisargika Sagittarius? What bhava is that Naisargika? 9th? And the Naisargika Pisces is the 12th. What's the 9th bhava? Father? Yes? Yes? And 4th from there? Pisces? Yes? So you see those two completely, Dashratha died completely heartbroken. One of the greatest significations of the 4th house is not just about home and reality and palace and what hut you're staying or all that, but it is our fundamental deep happiness. How happy are we? The 4th house is instrumental. Would you say that he was happy, Dashratha? No, right? Okay, you get the picture. Now, I'm going to just quickly go through this. We have like 10 more minutes. Can I push it to 10? Yes? 8? Okay, so this is from the Tattva Bodha. Sthula Sharira, the gross body, Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira. Now we are all made up of these fundamental building blocks. Sthula we know, it's our external gross body. Sukshma we know, the subtle body, which is all our indriyas and the five sense organs. And the Karana Sharira, can we say it is the Atma Karaka? Can we map it to our soul level, our Atma level, our big purpose? So, if we now think about all the pain, that different kinds of pain we have sort of just learned in the previous slides, can we say the Adhivalika pain, which is caused by all the demons and all the creatures from out of this world, the devatas and, the curses and so on and so forth. Can we say that it is mapped to the Karana Sharira, which is on a soul level? Can we say that? Yes? So there's a little mapping for you here. Everybody? No? Not convinced? Yes, convinced? You're the only one shaking your head. Yeah. Okay. Yatha pinde tatha brahmande. Yatha brahmande tatha pinde. So we all have heard about this. As above, so below, so below. So it's a fundamental thing about that there are materials in the universe. What happens in all the lokas, literally the lokas, we have the power to experience. The yogic powers, yogic people, the sadhus have this power within them, and so here all the materials of the universe are found within our body, which is really ironic. Planetary scientists, stardust, everybody's heard of stardust, right? So we have heard of stardust. So we are what we are, the periodic table, all the elements that are found in space are within our body, which gives us a clue that we literally have the power of connecting with the great universe, powerful forces of the great universe. And when we talk of the great universe, we are talking of the entire Brahmanda, all the worlds. And then we come to the Godhead or the Dhruva Tara. Everybody heard of Dhruva Tara, the pole star? Right? Now this concept is absolutely unique. It is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the Devi Mahatmya. It's there everywhere and it is central and core. And now you're going to get a bit of a shock, okay? Just prepare yourself for the shock. We all know that the earth is round. We all know that, right? Yes? We all believe that, right? Okay, great, lovely. So, sorry? Yes? Okay, let's plug on and we'll know. So this Dhruva is basically nothing but the Shushumira, and literally the word Shushumara. I will come to the Shushumara, but literally this entire, all the planets, all the nakshatras, all of them literally pivot round. It's like a centrifugal force that just sucks in towards the pole star. So even the earth, everything, is it moving? Is earth moving? Yes? Interesting. But it talks about the Shushumaram, free from all passion. So it's like this beast, it's like a makar, It talks about that it is like a second Gayatri. It is nothing but the Brahman himself. And it is actually the great Jyotish Chakra. And it is the Shushumara. Shishu means, in Sanskrit, means a little kid. And Mara, of course, we mean, what do we mean Mara? Killer? So is it like what? Kid killer? Doesn't make sense. But it proposes, and it's there in the Bhagavad Puran, it's there in the Padma Puran. Basically, all the planets, everything are revolving around this Dhruva Tara. And while the earth is absolutely flat, it's it used to be one big landmass. And all the nakshatras literally, remember Tatha Brahmande, Remember, they all are within us. This is the Kal Purusha. This is the Virat Purusha. Literally, this is the body of Sri Ram, the body of Narayana. That is all the, and how many nakshatras do you see on one side? How many on the other? Can someone say? No? Now, is that clear? 14? Uttarayan nakshatras, 14 on one side, another 14 on the other side. Yes? So we are made up of the material of the nakshatra. They are within us. So it's 14 and 14. So literally we can connect to that through Sri Ram. Literally. And it talks about, so these are the Dakshinayana and the Uttarayana. And then they have even taken, have you anybody heard of the number 8, Analema? Anybody heard of it in astronomy? Where they took the camera and they literally, whenever the sun arose at certain times, risen, and the number 8 pattern came about in the sky. What is that number 8?
Infinity.
Huh?
Infinity.
Yes? Infinity. Yes. Yeah. It's not just infinity. Number 8 is also related to Shani. Yes? And what does Sri Ram have? What was the Shani? Was the key issue with him, right? So here again we see this relevance of the 14 Uttarayana and the 14 Dakshinaya the nakshatras on each side. I'm not going to go into the mapping. Now, if you dig deep in, there are 28 different kinds of hells that we go through. And again, what is 28? Each nakshatra will contribute a hell, right? So anytime dharma is not followed, one of the hells is absolutely guaranteed for you, depending on your moon or lagna nakshatra. So there we go. And that is the list of all the nakshatras there. So, the hells there. Like I said, another big topic to explore, but won't go into that. Now coming to the last ones. So Shishumara Chakra proved that the earth is stationary and everything else is moving within that. So all the planets, all the stars, all the nakshatras, everything is in various levels and various mandalas, and they are all like a pivot and like a bull which keeps going, rotating round and round, and it literally, the central force, the central column is rotating and everything is revolving around that. And earth is one of, and all the lokas are above the earth, below the earth, and so literally we are coming to the conclusion that it is flat. Now this is not my view, it is there in the Puran. Is there in the Bhagavad Puran, is there in the Padma Puran, is there in Devi Mahatmyam. So, okay, then little extra bit, I won't go into that again. When the churning of the ocean happened, Samudra Manthan, that also 14 great ratnas or treasures came out. Again, the relevance and the connection with the 14. Yeah. Then we have the 14 superior human beings, superior beings, Kinnaras, Gandharv. Again, these are all little extra. You can, figure it out. So now finally the conclusion that, a lot has been discussed about the Sri Ram Nama, so I won't go into that. But essentially, Sri Ram is the fire, sun and moon combination. Ma, that is the sandhi, which the glue, which is nothing but, that's why we often refer to Sri Ram as Ramchandra, right? Now, typically, when we talk of Ramchandra, he's got moon, Jupiter. In relationships, moon, Jupiter is a disaster. If you have a conjunction, it doesn't work well. And we know why, because Tara went off with Chandra and so on and so forth, and she was disappointed and abandoned by Chandra. So, but yet Sri Ram, there's a big lesson to it. In spite of the afflicted moon, and in spite of that, and the Pitri dosha, and all the other doshas, and not to mention the curse of the 6th house, Jupiter lords the 6th house, and it is in Lagna with the moon. Any graha with the moon, 6th lord with the moon, is an sure short curse in the chart. Black magic, everything will be done on you. So that's my little thing, and I'm going to just end on Srimad Valmiki Ramayans, that ultimately it talks about that Shriyah Shri. Basically, Sri Ram and his experience is nothing but Sita herself. The Bhagavati Sita herself is Sri Ram, and Sri Ram is Bhagavati Sita. So that is the big conclusion. So they are one and the same. Okay, now little extra chopais. Just one more minute, Guruji, 1 minute. This is a little chopai for the great travel protection. Below I have put Ram's yantra, which is again part of my research. Please feel free to go further in. But Chalat Bimana Kolahal Hoi, Jai Raghubir Kahi Sabu Koi, Sinhasan Ati Uchcha Manohar Shri Sameta Prabhu Baithe Tapar. So this chopai from the Ramcharitmanas will deliver absolute protection, whether it is flight or bullock cart or bike or any other fancy vehicle you need to travel on. And I will end with this Savitur Gayatri given by the Shankaracharya of Puri. Guruji came in the right time. And this particular Gayatri mantra, and yes, I am saying it is the Gayatri, the Savitur Gayatri. It has the blessings of Savitur Gayatri, because Gayatri is not for everyone. So here, this is from the Ramcharitmanas, and it has absolutely amazing meaning. Janaka Sutta Jaga Janani Janaki Atisay Priya Karuna Nidhan Ki Take Juk Pat Kamal Manao Jasu Kripa Nirmal Mati Pao. So please, I fall at your lotus feet and give me the sophistication and subtle intelligence, because the O Mother, daughter of Janaka and the mother of the universe. So with that I end. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thank you, Sonam. That was a very astounding speech with so much of information on what is the connection for 14 years of exile of Sri Rama.